Good evening. Suicide is serious. Teach kids boundaries and self-respect. Listen closely, love deeply, and remind them they matter every single day. Our title tonight, Divorce, Death, and Suicide, told by Les Franklin. Well, hello, Les Franklin. How you doing today?
I'm doing all right now that I'm talking to you.
Oh, listen at you. Cut it out. But thank you, sir. Sir, we're here today to talk about raising children. And I believe it was like a single father raising children.
Yes.
And and that's kind of the whole gist of what I get about what we're going to be talking about. So, if I may, can you kind of start off and give us a little background of like where you came from, where you're at here now in Colorado, and then get into the children and, some of the things that you went through raising them alone?
Uh, I came from Colorado Springs and lived most of my life between Colorado Springs and California. But when I got to Colorado, I went into college here in the University of Northern Colorado in Greeley, and then when I finished it there, I was went right into the Air Force as a young second lieutenant. I stayed in the Air Force for several years and came out and started working for the IBM Corporation. I met my first wife, and I was with her for probably 7, 8 years until I learned that she was being unfaithful to me. As a result of that, I ended up divorced from her. But by that time, I had two children. I had a 12-year-old and a 6-year-old. Both of the children stayed with me, and I began to raise them here in Denver.
What I want to talk to you about, I noticed you mentioned that you was in the Air Force. And
Hmm.
I just wanted to tell you, my father was in the Air Force as well. And his name was William Parson, and he was down at the Finance Center that used to be down on York Street. So
I
I'm
know.
I'm a Air Force brat too, if you would. So you have the two children,
Yes.
12 and 6.
Yes. When I was by myself with him, and that's when I moved into an apartment. And then ultimately, after the divorce was settled, the children lived with me. And I was working for the IBM Corporation at that time, and I got transferred back to Connecticut. And while I was in Connecticut, I had an aunt, my mother's older sister, and my mother was already deceased. But my mother's sister had a young lady that was 8 years old that she was taking care of, which was her brother's daughter that he had had out of wedlock. And I looked out the window one day in Stamford, Connecticut, and there my aunt was in the car with her niece, and I ended up taking care of her niece. My aunt, who was a senior at the time, Fannie Mae Duncan was her name, but in the car was Renee's father and a cousin that I'd never met, a 19-year-old boy who I still have a relationship. His name was Kenny Bonner. All of those folks stayed with me for a while. I paid for my uncle to fly back to Colorado Springs, and then I ended up having Kenny there with me for 18 months. My aunt Fannie Mae Duncan and my cousin Renee, along with my two sons. So I took
Wow.
care of them for the 18 months. I took care of the family, and then I had to take care of some business for my aunt because she walked away from a 43-room house in Colorado Springs that I had to get squared away and ultimately sell for, which I did, and was able to get that business taken care of. And then we continued to live in Connecticut until we moved back to Colorado.
So when you were in Connecticut, what I'm understanding, you had like 4 children.
Yes, I had a 19-year-old cousin, a 8-year-old young girl that was also my cousin, and my two sons who were 6 and 12.
and you're
Renee
just
was
and you were a young man yourself.
I was probably at that time probably about 28.
Yeah, that's a young man to me. I didn't really understand, and this is the truth. I really didn't start understanding things till I was about 30, 32. I mean, when
Mhm.
something shifted in my thinking. So at 28, that's a large responsibility.
I was actually 28 when I got married, so
Okay,
I was probably more like 32.
still young to me. That's
Yeah,
still a lot. Four kids, not kids. You had a man, a young man, then you had young men coming up, and then a little girl. That's a little hard to juggle. I happen to have two daughters, and daughters are a lot different than the little boy. To me,
that's great.
to me. Okay, sir. How did you kind of migrate and get the family back to Colorado Springs or Denver, Colorado?
I got him back to Denver, Colorado, and it was as a result of when I left the IBM plant in Boulder, Colorado, which I was a fourth line manager at that time. They started having some problems with employees in Boulder, with the morale. And I'd always had a very good reputation in dealing with employees and having high morale whenever they took the tests and did the opinion surveys. So the chairman of the board of IBM, Frank Carey, he sent me back to Boulder, and at that time he made me a fifth level manager. So I had four levels of management that were beneath me and seven guys that reported directly to me. And I was responsible for the IBM Boulder plant, which had a total of 5,000 people. I came back to Denver and I bought a lot close to a school where my kids could go to the elementary school, middle school, and elementary. My youngest was going to the elementary. My oldest boy was going to the middle school. So I had to build a house, moved my family back, and leased a house out in Aurora, and took care of my aunt. But before I got the house finished, my lease ran out, which was a year lease that I had leased from an engineer from Western Electric. Well, the 12 months ran out and the house wasn't complete yet. And my son and I moved in to a friend's house. Sam Townsend was his name, and there was only one bedroom in there that was available. So my son slept in the bed, and I slept on the floor. And I did that for 2 months until the house was completed. Master bedroom upstairs, and had two bedrooms downstairs for my sons, and I took the other, which what I call a master bedroom, across the hall from my aunt, and that's how we got started in Denver, Colorado. And I commuted to the IBM Boulder plant on Highway I-25 up to Highway 52. That's kind of the story of my moving around. My youngest was born in Culver City, California. Not only did I run the United Negro College Fund for 2 years, I also managed an actor by the name of John Amos, who became a very good friend. And when I moved back to Colorado and got reestablished here some years later.
Let's pick up like when you were settled, when the house was built, when you finally were able to move into your home with the children. They're in school. They're without the mother. How did you juggle all of that, and how did you manage that as a single father?
Oh, my aunt, she got her niece, Renee, into Kent Country Day, and through some contacts that she had. And my oldest boy went to TJ High School after he finished middle school, and his brother was able to go over to the middle school, which is right across the street from where we are. And that's why I moved in this area, because it made it pretty easy. The bus came right here and was able to take my oldest boy over to Thomas Jefferson High School, and I didn't have to worry about him. And I didn't have to worry about my youngest, because he could just walk across the street when he got to middle school after leaving home elementary school. So that was good for me, because I had to leave early in the morning and head up to Boulder, and my kids were here at home, and my aunt as well at the time. My aunt Frances moved here to Colorado, and I came home one day, and my aunt Frances was here from California, and I didn't know that she had Alzheimer's, and no one ever told me that either. And the next thing I know, that there was furniture stacked up in the great room to the ceiling. Renee's bedroom was full of furniture, and all three, my little cousin, both of my aunts, were all living in one room. The next thing I know, a few months later, I come home and the furniture in the house was all my aunt's furniture upstairs, except my boys' bedroom, which they had two water beds. I came home from work one day, and all of them had gone, and my aunt had used the money that my aunt Frances had. She had $165,000. That, but all I know is I came home and the house was empty except for my youngest son, who was downstairs in his room. At least that's where he stayed. And by this time, though, my oldest boy had graduated from high school. He was in college at Morehouse College in Atlanta. So my youngest boy was here by himself, and my oldest boy, he was in college, going to school and doing what he could do there.
Okay, I'm trying to tie this together. All these people were living in the home,
Yes.
and the sister of your aunt, which I guess is your aunt too,
Yep.
had Alzheimer's, and
Right.
then she was doing these things with the furniture or something. One son is gone. What happened with the other sister? I mean, how did you all handle that? And
Well,
even more so than that, do you feel that affected the children in any kind of way?
definitely my youngest son, because now when I leave the house or when I left the house in the morning, he would be here by himself and he had to get himself squared away and get over to the school. I've written a book, and I think most of this is in the book that I've written. It's about my life story, and I talk about all this.
What's
It's
the
called
name
the
of the
name of the
book?
book. It's called Love Less, and it's on Amazon. The book is 700 pages with 70 pages of
Well,
pictures.
that's when I started. I said, from what I heard about you, we'd be here all day.
Yeah,
But
I'm in
but
a
but
couple of
now
books.
the book part. Do you have a picture of all that?
Oh, sure, I do. I don't have
Okay,
it
because
right
if
here
you
in my
could
hand,
send
but
me a
I.
picture,
Oh yeah, I'll be
I'll
happy to
push
do
the
that.
book on there. And you say it's on Amazon.
Yes. In fact, if you go on Amazon, just look up Love Less, the cover of that book will show up.
Lovelless.
Yeah, Love, Love, Less, Love, and then Less.
Okay. Okay. So I got that. We're gonna get a cover of that. What what I want to get into before we, because like you said, there's the aunties, there's the Alzheimer's, there's the Connecticut. You've lived a lot. You wrote a book. What we want to zero in on is what it was like as a father commuting to Boulder, raising these children. Who was your support group that helped you raise these children? How long were you gone? You said you were gone from in the morning, and then like what time would you return back home about?
Well, normally I returned, 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night. But I always prepared meals. I'd draw up on a paper plate and I divided into 7 parts, and I would say what I'm going to have each day
Okay.
for dinner. And I did this even when we were in Connecticut. I cooked for everybody. I hired a young lady by the name of Kathy, came out of Brooklyn. She'd get there on Sunday evenings and leave on Friday. And she did the ironing, washing. Kathy was from Barbados. And one day I came home because Kathy started showing some interest in me. My aunt had fired her. She fired Kathy, and that was the
It's Kathy
Kathy.
gone, huh?
Yeah, Kathy was
Auntie
gone.
said we're not
But
having none of this up in here. Did you work 5 times a week, 6 days?
5 days a week in Connecticut. But when I got back to Colorado, I'd be working 7 days a week. I'd go to work on Sundays, but not all day.
I
I
hear you.
might go in the morning from 5 o'clock until noon, and by 1 o'clock I'd be home.
That's the part that I kind of want to zero in more on because I hear a lot about the other things and the time that you were gone, like 7 days or for the most part of the day, and when when your sons are being raised, it sounds like your aunties really was a great support for you, to have somebody there while you're out working, to help keep them all
She
together.
was that was good when I was in Connecticut, but once I was came back to Colorado, she wasn't in this house, which was that long before she left and moved into the to the house with her sister.
How old were your boys when they started leaving the home? Like, where did they go? Were they in sports? Were they, um, what were
Well,
they like?
yeah.
What were the boys
Well,
like?
in high school, my oldest son played football. My youngest son played football, little league football. So, at one point in time, I'd go to my oldest boy's little league game, and then we'd turn around and go over to his brother's little league game if they to a different park if they were at a different park. But many times, both teams are playing at the same park, and so one would finish, and then they both played in the same league. So but different age levels. So it was pretty easy for me to go to both and have my oldest boy support. In fact, my youngest and my oldest wore number 21 on their jersey. And my
Okay,
youngest wanted to be like his older brother. So even though he played on the line and his brother played back, he still wore number 21.
okay. So they were athletic. They were in the school.
Yep.
Um,
Both played football. They both
both
played
played
football.
football. One thing I want to kind of zero in on, sir, when you were gone, who I heard you say the young child, he was in middle school, and he kind of get up and fend for himself in the morning.
Always, yes. But he knew what to do because we would talk about
Okay.
clothing and made sure everything was laid out the way he needed it to get to school. And I never neglected either one of my boys. I was the dad that stayed. I didn't run around. I didn't go out. I didn't do the Friday night things. I was always home when I could be home.
Amen.
And the only thing that kept me away from home was my job. And I did that, and they understood that, and we had conversations about being in the house, and so I would call. But as he got older and became a teenager, even before he was in high school, I learned later, after my sons had passed away, that he used to sneak out the window out of his room, and I learned that from the neighbor boy who was sneaking out with. I never knew that. I
Oh,
found
we
that
did
out.
that all the time.
I learned that long after he had passed away.
I did hear that. That's kind of how I want to frame this a lot in my mind. In other words, I know what happened,
Hmm.
and I really don't know how, Mr. Franklin, to even open that door. So if it's okay, or if I say something, please understand that I'm just trying to be very cautious because I really don't know the emotions and things that go behind something like that. So I wanted to make it very clear that I desperately want to know your thoughts about it, but I don't want to come off as disrespectful or anything.
That's not a problem. I've been all over this country talking about suicide, youth suicide, and I created an organization, as you are aware, in his name. It's called the Shaka Franklin Foundation. And I've been in every state in this country except Alaska talking to children. And I've been in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, in a Jewish synagogue talking to children that synagogue had lost some of their people that lost their children to suicide. And we've done 12 national television shows early on right after Shaka died. In fact, Montel Williams knew and met Shaka before he had passed away and knew my oldest boy. And so he was affected by the loss of Shaka because he knew who he was. And we did a number of things. We were in Time Magazine, People Magazine, Source, the hip hop magazine, which doesn't exist anymore. But we talk about it. But I try to educate people. My wife and I, who I'm currently married to a young lady who, after I lost Shaka, we got married, and we weren't married before then, but we were dating. and we were very close. And she knew Shaka, and she knew my oldest boy. I've worked very hard at both of us to try to make people, especially parents, be aware of the dangers that are affecting children all over this country. And most people have no idea that we lose 2,000 children a year to suicide that are from middle school to high school, just those two levels, middle school to high school.
When you go over the country and you talk about these things, do you talk about what might have been in their minds of what brought them to this point?
I think the number one thing that affects children that cause them to take their lives is divorce and situations that happen in the family. The other thing that I know that affects a lot of children, and primarily in the majority community, but it also happens in the Black community and other communities, is being abused, and especially girls raped by their fathers. I've had conversations with children who have been raped by their father multiple times and want to kill themselves, and in fact do ultimately. I've not talked to any that have done it. To my knowledge, we've never lost a child that we've had a chance to have a conversation with. But I even know it. Talked to a young lady at Cherry Creek High School. Her father raped her several times, and then all of a sudden, I stopped hearing from her. I had another young lady that I was speaking at a health class at Douglas County High School in Castle Rock. She came to me with her arms straight up, and I always have the teacher stand right next to me because I never want to be accused of something. These kids always want to be hugged.
Girl had her hands up in the air. They all want to
Yes.
hug you. You
Yeah,
had
she had
some.
razor blade slits in both of her armpits. And she was crying her heart out, and I said, "What's the matter, honey?" And she says, "My brother raped me." And when I told my mother said, "You should be lucky he loved you so much." And then she told me the mother sent the boy to Arizona. And those are just two of the stories that I tell. But I've got literally hundreds and hundreds of stories from talking to children all over this country about the abuse that they've taken from sometimes even from a grandfather or from an uncle.
I didn't get the feeling that you were raping your boys or abusive to your boys.
No,
I didn't get that.
no, but what
So
I said is that the thing that I know affected my youngest son the most was the divorce. And his mother also, which I didn't get a chance to talk about, was dying of cancer. And she died 4 months after my youngest, but she was already dying and knew she was dying. And I didn't know that I had a neighbor who was taking him to visit with his mother without my knowledge. And I have no idea what she was saying to him. And whatever she said to him affected him strongly. And I believe that that's why he killed himself, because of what went on between him and his mother.
you're kind of making me a little fearful myself because I was married. I got divorced. My son was 6, literally. That's why I'm listening to your story. And when he got older, he mentioned to me, he said, "I just want to die." And I just asked him one time why. And that's why it's getting me because he said because of the divorce. I mean, he's saying just what you're saying. And I thank God I didn't have to go no further with this. But with you, being that we're here, okay, we're talking about the younger son right now. Was that the one being taken to the mother? And
Yes,
the younger son, did he leave first?
yes. What you will find is that if one child takes their life, it puts other children at risk. Let me give you an example. I was speaking at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs to a group of coaches, and we were talking about suicide prevention. And because they deal with children that are going through all kinds of things as they're coaching these children. When I finished, one of the coaches came out of the room crying his heart out. And I was in the hallway and I said, "What's the matter, sir? What's the matter?" He says, "Mr. Franklin, I had 5 brothers and there were 6 of us. And all 5 of my brothers have committed suicide
Oh
and are
my
dead now."
God.
Yes, and you'll find that if one does it, The other children are also at risk, especially if they're fairly close together in age. So it's devastating to a family.
Is that kind of another message you're saying here in this
Saying
message?
if you lose one child, you better be careful if you got other children. And you need to get with them and spend as much time as you can with them and understand how they're feeling and even get them some medical help if you have to. If you sense it, get them talking to someone besides yourself, because they may lie to you because they don't want to hurt your feelings. But they may be much more honest talking to a medical professional outside of the family.
When you were with your younger son, when you found out that he was being uh, taken somewhere without your knowledge, when did you find out this happened? After or before?
Probably 10 years after he was dead, maybe longer.
Okay, so you had no clue.
No clue.
You feel that it was brought because of the divorce? Or do you feel there were other circumstances that kind of helped this along?
The divorce and the fact that his mother was telling this young man, and I can only surmise this, that she's going to die. And so he died before her, 4 months before her. He killed himself 4 months before his mother died. Sherman Hamilton, he's now dead as well. And he also had a daughter that committed suicide with her boyfriend.
Wait. Woo!
Yeah.
Woo! When you're out the
No.
house and you come in, do you feel, and I'm listening to you because you're right. You know, I have children, great grandchildren, all that too. And it's a thing of where sometimes these kids say things that really scare me. So what I'm getting at is your son and understanding that you're working in things, but did you have a clue? Did anything anything that you could share or say that maybe a person should be looking out for it?
Sure, but the only thing my son knew was that we were divorced and she was having conversation with him about her, where she was in life. He knew and met her new husband because he was being taken to her house. I have no idea what kind of discussion she was having with him when my neighbor, who was a French lady and a hairdresser, was taking. And I didn't know. She told me, the hairdresser told me that she was taking Shaka over to his mother's house to visit. I had no clue, and she never told me.
But do you
And she told
feel
me years later. She
but
told me just in the last couple of years.
but do you feel that your youngest son, do you feel that there was something that we should look for as a parent? Is there anything that clued you? Did you have any warning? Did you have any thought? Did you feel he was depressed? What kind of clue or sign or something that
What I saw in my son is he was acting sullen. In the last day of his life that I saw him, I took him to school. I drove him to school. And when he got out of my car, I saw him walk to the side door with his hands down his side. He seemed dejected, he had his head down, and he was just walking. And in my mind, I kept saying, I need to call him back and tell him, just get in the car and stay with me today. And I said, to this day, I said, I wish I had done that, because I could see that he was very depressed and upset about something. I had no idea what he was upset about, but I could tell that he was very depressed and very upset about something, because he had both hands down beside, and he was walking like with his head down, and he was walking in a way I'd never seen him before. He wasn't up there walking with any kind of pep in his step and looking like he was happy and saying, "See you later, Dad." He didn't do that. Wasn't like that. Normally he would have hugged me, he would have kissed me on the cheek, he would have laughed, and he would have started trotting up to the door. He walked very sullen and dejected. And to this day, and I'll go to my grave saying I wished I had stopped him and said, Shaka, come here. You're not going to school today. You're going to hang out with me. And I could have easily had him, we could have just hung out in town or whatever, because I had that kind of clout with my job and no one would have ever challenged me.
But sir, you know and I know you weren't even expecting nothing like that.
That's right.
Did you, like the day before, the week before, was he starting to show
He was quiet. Yes.
He starts. Do you know or have any idea why he was acting like that, or what made him be
No,
like
no,
that?
none whatsoever. None whatsoever.
So
Because he was
that
always in his room.
so that
Stayed
day,
in his room.
so that day when he walked in the house with his hands down to his side.
No, he didn't walk into the house. He walked into the school.
Oh,
I
and
took him to school and he walked about, it was about a half a block to the door. I stopped and let him out of my car and he walked up to the door and sat there and watched him walk into the school.
so where did this happen?
That same day, he came home and found a pistol that was hidden in the bedroom and shot himself in the head and killed himself. He didn't die right away. He died in the hospital. And I had to tell the doctor that he was brain dead to unhook him. And I never stayed in the room with him. I called his mother. His mother came with her husband. They stayed in the room. He had gloves on his hands. They were trying to make sure that he was the one that shot. I know that's what they were doing, looking for gunpowder. I stayed in the hallway. There were two policemen out there, and a friend of mine. Actually, the friend was Odell Berry. I called him. He called. Odell played for the Broncos. He had played. He called a lot of guys that we knew, ex-Bronco guys, and they all came to the house. And my house was a crime scene, and they were checking the stuff in the house. And that happened twice in my home because my other boy killed himself in the garage.
Wait.
Yeah, my oldest son, 10 years later. 10
So,
years later, my oldest son took his life.
so the younger son went in the house, shot himself in the head, and
He didn't die right away.
but you did notice that he was
I came home and found him on the floor beside his bed. I thought he had fallen off the bed until I looked down and saw the pistol between his legs. I called 911. They came and took him to the hospital. And I called a friend of mine, and he came. His name was Dave Butler, Damani Kamar, and he drove me to the hospital. And I called other friends, and so I kind of get things mixed up between both of them because I had two situations, both at my home. One became a crime scene. The other one, my boy was in the hospital and died in the hospital.
that kind of scares me a little because
Every
I
parent should be scared.
yeah, I mean, because I'm listening to you, and I could say, well, I grew up like this, I grew up like that. Like you're saying, the girl was raped by her dad. This is something all the way different. This is something that you couldn't really. I'm sure if you could have grabbed a hold of him, you would have. Like you said, no job, nothing. But it didn't dawn on you. That's why I'm taking it in because, like you said, we're not aware, and we as parents really need to be aware of what our children are doing, how they're thinking, what they're feeling, and those little signs, like you were saying. Something inside you just say, "What's wrong with my baby? Look at the way he's looking." You never knew it was like that, though. Then 10 years later, can you kind of walk us through the older son?
The oldest boy, he took his life 10 years later. He had three classes to go when his brother died at Morehouse College. Took him 10 years to finish those three classes, and I had to bring him home, and he ended up going to Metro College here in Denver and finished and apply those classes, but he got his diploma from Morehouse. Well, as soon as he got that diploma, uh, he, he, he took his life while I was out of the country. My wife and I had gone to a wedding of a kid in France and then in Ireland. And when we came home, he knew when we was going to get home. We came home, he was in the back seat of a car I had restored, and he had asphyxiated himself in that car. And he'd taken drugs. And the reason why I know he had taken cocaine, and what he did is he went in my safety deposit box, got some jewelry that I had, sold it, was able to get the cash that he needed apparently. And so there's a lot of little in between things and stories of what he did and how he did it. But he left a little piece of stick or something, a little flat board, And on that board, he just had next, 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 and next. He just said next, next, and next. And in other words, I was going to be next. And he just showed, and that's how he showed us and little stick people. He had his mother, a large one. Then he had himself. Then he had his brother. Then he had himself. Then he had me. But what he did was, and the reason why I know that he put cocaine in the system is because the coroner told me that there was nothing in his body that was any good between the cocaine that was mixed with the fumes from the car. He tried to warn me in a way too. And here's what he did. I had the keys to that car in a jar inside a cabinet in my bedroom, the master bedroom. He found those keys and he laid them on the dresser before I ever left the country. And I looked at the keys sitting there, and I had no idea why they were there. I just looked at them and I said, how did these get here? So I picked them up off the long credenza and put them into the tall credenza, put them back right where they were. And what he was telling me, that he's already been studying how he was going to kill himself, and he was going to do it with the car. And I didn't ask him or anybody else about those keys. I should have asked him. I didn't even ask my wife, how did these keys get here? If I'd asked her, she'd have said she didn't know. Then I'd have asked him. And maybe he would have talked to me about it, maybe not. But that was a little sign. He sent me a little sign. I'm going to kill myself by starting up the car, close the garage, and let the fumes kill me. Because I know he studied that looking at the center that we have, looked at it on the computer, and he found a way that he could kill himself without shooting himself. Because he knew his brother didn't die right away. Because when his brother was in the hospital, I called him in Morehouse, and I sent him the money, and he came home. His brother had just died by the time he got home. You know, his brother had been dead maybe a couple of days. Now, I don't even know how long, but I know my son showed up, came home.
So the older son, the one that came back, he wasn't in the drugs, or he just did drugs on this occasion.
I think that after his brother died, he got into drugs because he had a girlfriend that he met at community college at Denver, and I found out later this girl was a prostitute. He was staying with her, and I know that his next door neighbors were gangsters. And the other thing that I'll tell you is that I know they really liked my son. And the reason why I know that because when his services, when he died, one of them came to the house crying his heart out. And these guys don't tend to cry. Nice young man. But I know he was one of the neighbors. And I know what they had because Jamon told me, he said, Dad, these guys got machine guns. And he was telling me about it. And he said, my neighbors. He said, but I get along with these guys. They really like me. And so one of them showed up at the house. But let me tell you, this is something I've never discussed publicly. My friends have heard me say it. But after my son died, and they know that he died from all the drugs that he was taking and the fumes, that young lady ended up on the railroad tracks on the west side of town, dead. Somebody beat her to death.
Whoa.
And they've never found out who did it.
How long after your son was the girlfriend found?
About 6 months.
Well, Mr. Franklin, that's devastating. I mean, I'm sitting here heavy in the heart just thinking about what I heard from a son, you know, and how there's been times I got on my knees and prayed, but I'm listening so on every word you're saying because I don't think I would have a clue. I wouldn't even know how to process it. Like I've seen my children sometimes look a little down, you know, that you expect that in this world. But to understand that they're so down till they really don't feel that they want to live, that their life isn't worth anything. I mean, I just don't even know how you could take that. I mean, 1, 2, and then you have this foundation for it, and you go all over the world to talk about it. And I commend you because it's hurting me just hearing you talk about it.
I knew a 9-year-old boy that killed himself the same week that my son did. I walked with that boy's father. And that boy had a younger brother. You know what he did?
Kill
The
it.
9-year-old told his younger brother, I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to shoot myself, and then maybe you'll get more presents. He didn't even think he was going to die. Well, I walked with the father down the street that had lost that 9-year-old boy that made that statement. And the only reason know he made the statement because his younger brother told his dad, and his dad told me.
Sir, I'm gonna have to take a pause for my own cause, but if you if you were to share something, and you have shared with so many, but here on Where Were You, is there anything that you could possibly share with someone that may have raised a child, two children, even other people's children, and then do the best that you can do and working every day? And like you said, you weren't out tripping and getting high and partying and all of that. And not only were you going through your things about your children and things, but you also went through this with your wife. You it's like you had this. It's good you're here, but if there was something you could say, something that you could tell the audience about your situation, how to look out for it, what to look for, what we can do as parents, what would you tell us?
I'll say spend as much time as you can, and you talk to your children, ask them. And if you're going to chastise a child about anything, you need to sit down with them and tell them why, and talk to them just like you're talking to a young adult. I don't care what age they are. You talk to them. You spend time with them, and you let them know if something happened to them, it would devastate you, and it would cause you probably to put your own life at risk. It's something you tell them. Because let me tell you, when I talk to kids in schools and I talk to them about suicide, I tell them, if you really hate your parents, you hate them to the core, if you hate them, then taking your life is the number one thing that would tear your parents up. And I'll tell you, I've never ever heard of a child saying that they will take their life. We've never lost a child that we know that we've talked to anywhere in this country when we've had these conversations with them. But I'll tell you, if people are not having those conversations and putting it right out there, straight, point blank, that if you hurt yourself, it could even cause your brother or your sister, if there are other brothers and sisters, to take their lives. Do you hate your brother? Do you hate your sister? Do you hate your mother? Do you hate your dad? Because if you hate any of them and you do something to yourself like that, you put them at great risk.
Well,
And I'll tell you, those are the kind of things that people do not teach their kids and help them understand that they can say. And I'll tell you the other thing. Many children are being brutalized by different relatives. And when they are, and it's especially in the case of fathers raping their daughters, mothers go along with it. I know the DA that used to be the DA in Denver, Beth McCann, a friend of mine. I talked to her about a situation where I was talking to a young lady who was referred to me by a kid that I coached in hockey. He says, I have a neighborhood friend. She's not my girlfriend. She's but she's a friend. She talking about killing herself. He told me what was going on. She never told me. He says her father's raping her. He says, I want you to call her. He gave me a number. I called her twice. She didn't call me back. I called him right away. He called her, then she called me. I talked to that young lady till about 3 o'clock in the morning. Then another time she called me about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning after he had raped her again. And I'll tell you what, I just disgusts me. And I know why, but it still disgusts me. Mothers know that their husbands do this stuff and they get the information, but the reason why they don't tell, and the DA has a special victims unit where they prosecute, and the Denver police has a special victims unit where they prosecute, but people don't use it. And the mothers don't call in to report their husbands because why? The husband's making the house payment, he's paying the car payments, he's paying for the groceries, and he's paying for the kid that might be in college or in school and buying all the clothes. Most of them are housewives where this stuff happens. But I'll tell you, in a black family, generally, the mother is carrying a lot of the load, so she'll turn them in. So you don't find as much of that happen in the black community because they're generally the mother's by herself anyhow. But you find out a lot of it happen in the majority community. Yet it happens in all communities. Grandfathers messing with little girls. Tell you, people have little girls, Don't have them sitting on Uncle so-and-so's lap or anybody else's lap. You teach them to just keep your hands off my child. And I'll tell you, we'll have a lot more kids that would be alive instead of that 2,000 middle school and high school kids that are killing themselves every year.
Amen.
Every year.
Amen. 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 Mr. Franklin, we could be here all day. I mean, you might have to come back and give me another little shot at something else because you have already introduced a lot of things. But this is a very, very serious subject. I'm glad that you took the time to just tell us a little bit about your situation and things. And one thing before we go, and this is something that I want you to just really, if you can, articulate it. Out of these circumstances, what did it do to you?
In addition to being devastated by the loss, because I love my boys.
Amen.
Being devastated by that, it made me, motivated me to do everything I could to help other families and to do what we do as a nonprofit organization.
People don't understand suicide, like you were saying. It's more around us than we're really paying attention to. And a lot of times people get in situations like that, they don't want to think about it. They don't really want to talk about it because it's a painful thing. And today you shared that story with us. And sir, I want to thank you for that. And I just want to keep the door open for if there's anything else that we can come together to talk about sometime, that we do it.
I'll say this last thing to you.
Yes, sir.
I had a friend that had a young man come by door to door and ask could he cut his grass or clean up around his house. He's a father that had raised a son by himself for a while until he got remarried. He said, this little young man, he said, he's the nicest kid you want to meet. He's 14 years old. And so he let him work and he paid him. And I said, well, could you give him my number? He did. The kid called me, and it's called me on I think it was on a Saturday, late afternoon, like 5 or 6 o'clock. I said, come on over, and whenever you want to, you can come. I think this is like on a Thursday or Friday. I said, you can come Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, whenever you want to come. So I'd love to have you come over here. I need some things trimmed and cleaned up around in front of my house. So he called me, and he said, I'll be over. And he came over. He cleaned up, did the work, but it was late in the afternoon. He said he was tired when I went out. He came for me to tell he was finished. He said, I'm really tired. I said, well, why are you doing this? He says, my mother and father divorced. He said, I got a scholarship to this private school. It costs $40,000 a year, and I paid. It's a black kid. He says, my mother, but we got a $20,000 scholarship, and he says, my mother has to pay the other 20. And I asked him, where's your dad? He said, they're divorced. And so I said, okay. He says, I'm trying to help my mother. I said, that's great. So after he did his work and he didn't like what he did, I says, okay, how much do I owe you? He says, sir, I didn't do the job. And by this time, it's almost 9 o'clock at night. He says, I didn't do the job I should have done, and it's not like I like it. He says, so I just can't charge you. I says, no, you trimmed those bushes. You swept up my driveway. You cleaned up after yourself. You worked in the pond. You might not have got it like you want. I said, I'll show you how you can do it and make it easier on yourself next time. I want you to come back just before school starts because I want to help you. Because he said he had to pay for his jerseys. He plays basketball and he plays soccer. And I said, you come back and I want to help you out. I reached in my pocket and I gave him a $100 bill. He said, sir, I can't take it. He said, I just can't take that. I said, you take this. I said, don't be silly. And then I gave him another $100 bill. And he said, oh, no, sir, no, please don't. I said, you take this money and you share it. You do whatever you have to do with you, share it with your mom. So I gave him a couple $100. I'm not telling you that to brag about it because it ain't no big thing because I give homeless people money, just like I gave this boy. I says, you come back here. He's a nice young man. And I started talking to him. You know what he said to me?
What did he say to you?
I told him about my sons taking their lives. He says, Mr. Franklin, my cousin killed himself last month. That's the message I want to share with you. We used to think black people didn't do this. They do it. When I spoke at the mortuary, my nephew asked me to speak. He works at a mortuary over on Colfax and Monaco. I spoke to 70 black men. There's one white man in there and one black female. And I talked to them. Two of them had lost their sons to suicide. And I shared with them some of the things that I'm sharing with you, but a whole lot more. And when I finished, I talked to the two fathers. Then when they left, the one lady in there came up to me who's never talked to me before, high up in the black church. I'm never going to name her, because she said, Les, my father raped me. And when I told my mother didn't do anything. And then he raped my daughter. And I told my mother she didn't do something, I would. That's a black man raping his daughter and his granddaughter.
See, you have. I just wanted to keep it over here, but like I said, your stuff is going. It's so much, but the thing is, we as a culture, our people need to understand this suicide thing is bleeding over into our culture. Like you said, we thought black people don't do that. Yes, they do.
That's right.
Yes, they do, and I know they do.
They do. I got a lot of other data. People think they know what's going on, but if they're not in there involved, they're really getting their hands dirty out there talking to their children and being involved in the schools and being involved at every level of everything their children are doing, they're making a horrible mistake.
I'm going to go pray. That's what I'm going to do. Because, and I'm going to call my son. You put a lot on my mind. And
tell him you love him. Tell him you love him.
I tell my kids that all the time. I love you. I
got a good buddy that his father never ever told him he loved him. Never. I tell him I love him all the time. He asks me what's wrong with me. He says, what's wrong with you, Les? Telling me you love me. But I tell all my friends, and I tell you, for what you're doing, I love you.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you. And I love you for coming in and doing it too. We just love each other. How about that?
That's right.
Well, another episode of Where Were You? And we would like to thank our guests for this evening. Also want to thank New Me. New Me helps sponsor Where Were You? So go on and check it out. New Me /Arkway. Also, go on and hit that like. Go on and hit subscribe. Go on and hit that share. Go on and leave a comment. And if you find anyone that has a story, let me know. And hey, you bless someone today.